So, when did you first discover that you wanted to do this? Just as something more than just sketching in your sketchpad.
Probably whenever I realized that the ideas I had didn't really match up with my artistic ability.
Okay.
So, as a way to make up for that, if you will, I found that writing the ideas that I had down on paper would be a way to get it out, and eventually that led to one thing led to another, and eventually I got into writing. And as for when it started, I think it started when I first got into college. When did you start making art, and what was your inspiration?
Let's see. I think it really started. It really started whenever I was somewhere in middle school. Back then, I was dealing with my Asperger's syndrome, and I discovered that the simple process of sketching would help me cope with my Asperger's syndrome. And I would basically doodle wherever there was empty space on my notes, or when I would get a report card, I would flip it on the back and I would start doodling there. And I think that was really the start of it all.
I've been drawing all my life. I guess I took an art class when I was in high school. But as far as inspiration goes, I mean, I've been into science fiction and fantasy all my life, and so I guess that's kind of my inspiration is that type of genre.
Okay.
Well, I remember doing artistic things, drawing, doodling, all the way from elementary school. I got into middle school and was always interested in art. I was always doodling in my free time, and about 7th grade I decided I wanted to be an architect, and so then followed that through high school and went to college in architecture.
Okay.
What mediums have you and do you work in, and what are some of your favorite subjects?
Let's see. I've worked with quite a lot of mediums, both traditional and electronic. I've learned to work with a lot of the Adobe products, specifically the more visual-based ones, such as Photoshop and Illustrator. I've also have some experience working with drawing tablets for computers. It was always fun to work with. I've also got experience working with a lot of traditional mediums, acrylic paints, graphite, and charcoal, as well as pastels, working with pens and colored pencils and the like. And as for my subjects, I usually work, I tend to gravitate more toward things like science fiction and fantasy. Just because I think they offer a lot of really interesting possibilities.
So really for most of my career I have worked in glass, initially starting with very traditional stained glass design and construction, and but along the way during school I had to take art courses, and I really enjoyed working in watercolor and pastel, although I don't use that very much anymore.
And what are some of your favorite subjects?
So a lot of my artistic career is custom commission work. So people come to you with a subject or a design in mind. So most of the time that I've done art, it really hasn't been so much my own, because I'm always trying to design what the client wants. Sometimes they need some guidance, When I'm kind of left to my own devices, I tend to work a little bit abstractly, and I'm very focused on the material of glass and what glass can do and its particular characteristics. So I don't I don't really have any favorite subject matter that I've worked with for long periods of time.
Has art impacted your career?
Art has definitely been a major impact on my career. Initially, I wanted to become a studio artist sometime in high school, but I figured that I probably wouldn't be able to make enough money that way. So I decided to shift my career goals to being a graphic designer. I figured that I could make more money that way. I'm working an hourly wage instead of just getting money via commission, and that would be a lot more steady and reliable, and I would still technically be working, with art. It's still very visually based, obviously.
Well, I mean, in a lot of senses, art is my career. I worked in architecture for about 8 years, on and off, and I've always maintained a studio pretty much since I graduated. So I did get some glass commissions as a result of my work in architecture, so there was kind of some crossover there, which was really neat. And even though I'm not doing architecture anymore, I'm still doing glass.
Does art have a deeper meaning to you?
I do believe it allows us to express thoughts and ideas that wouldn't be expressed other ways.
People talk about art as being an expression of the soul or being an expression of some deeper human quality. For me, it's simply an urge to create. And professionally, I create by pushing carbon around and, forcing carbon atoms to do things that God didn't really intend for them to do, but are useful for people. And you work with a media and a set of laws and a set of principles to make that happen. In art, you kind of do the same thing. You have an idea in your head and you push a media around to manifest that idea in reality.
Yeah, I think it's kind of all I want to do. I think that I think art is really one of the best things that we can do as human beings. I think creating really evocative and impactful art takes kind of a higher level thinking that is one of the characteristics of our species when we're at our best. Really good art is not just attractive, to look at, but somehow makes connections, and I think that the best pieces that I do take any number of different themes and somehow tie them together in something that is larger than just the topic of the piece of art. And it takes thinking, outside the box, and it forces you to kind of stand back and reevaluate things a little bit, which I think is a good habit for us all to get into, just in terms of living peacefully on the planet with one another.
Have you ever had any challenges in working with art?
One issue I have noticed in myself, especially in some recent years, is the fact that I tend to start a lot of projects, but I have a hard time finishing them, at least my personal projects. For projects like, say, for my work in graphic design and in my schoolwork, I tend to be able to finish them on time. But with my personal projects, I just have this habit of starting them and not finishing them for whatever reason. And it's gotten to a really bad point where I had all these unfinished ideas, and it kind of got me a little frustrated. So that is a bit of a recurring issue I have to deal with.
Of course. I mean, the media doesn't always do what you want it to do. Sometimes you can't get the idea, well enough formed to manifest it physically, or sometimes you simply don't have the skill to manifest it physically. So and when that happens, you look for ways around that. You try to improve your skills. You try and figure out a different way to manipulate the media. You try and find an expert who knows more about it than you do. And in that way, it's the same as engineering. If I run into a problem that I can't solve, I look for people to help me solve it. I try to improve my skills. I look for different routes and different avenues to solve the problem.
Why is it that you keep coming back to writing?
I suppose, like I said before, it's a creative outlet to me, but it's also a bit of a stabilizer as well. If I had a bit of a tough day and if video games doesn't work, I just put on some music and see what I can't improve and what I can't add. Why do you make art now?
Well, I make art now because it's, I would say, almost a part of me. It's something I think about almost on a daily basis. It's something that whenever I have nothing else to do, I will find some way to make art. It's, like I said, it's kind of a part of me now.
The need to create. This,
Okay.
and as I said, it's for me, it's not really much different than being an engineer. It's making something that wasn't there before.
Well, kind of referring back to my answer about what's important about art, I think art is it's just one of the things that makes life bearable on Earth, and seeing what other artists do and engaging with art and going to an exhibition and seeing something and liking it or not liking it, or having to kind of just step outside of the normal everyday of doing your laundry and your dishes and fighting the traffic and all that kind of stuff. It's really what brings grace to our existence, and I've always felt driven to do it. I am always happiest when I've got a piece in the works that's really pushing the boundaries of what I know how to do, because then I'm figuring out new things, and it keeps me